I think we had fun together, that's for sure. I mean,
Oh,
it's a
yeah.
wonderful group. We all knew each other before we came back for this because of the other film that we'd made. So that was wonderful. But I really enjoyed exactly what you're talking about, that there are so many paths that are taken in watching the journeys of our family basically fall apart, splinter, and do all that. And everybody goes in a different way that I think many of the paths they take are unexpected. But you whether you like them, you hate them, whatever their characters are, I think you're invested in them, and I think that's great.
Yeah, that was the goal all along. It really was, especially going into this sequel now. Is like, okay, the family is all in a tizzy. So what are the different paths each one is going to go down? And in fact, they do. And that's what keeps the audience involved, I think, is to see, oh, where's everybody going to end up here? It's like it feels like there's a truck about to fall, but somehow it's hanging on the edge of its wheels. And then you find out later that, by the end of the movie, it's like, oh, well, gee, it's kind of like life. It resolves itself, in a sense. And so everybody kind of has found their place. Even if there's a little doubt here and there, they still have found a place. And if they hadn't gone through that journey, they would have missed all of it, Well, it was a perfect opportunity. And this is where I was crossing my fingers a lot, which we all know. I've told this story many times. But it was like, okay, so civilization goes on. The older generation is maybe trying to catch up, or maybe being left behind a bit, and some of the newfound language is a little confusing to them. And so, but I wanted to have a show that and just take it straight on, and because it is what it is. It's not, we don't have to sit around whispering about it. We just address it. And however, I will say that until the very first screening, I was crossing my fingers with nerves saying, I hope people will accept what we're doing here. And the answer, of course, was that, yeah, they are, completely. They get it. And it's humorous. And humor always helps to get you over the hump of issues that are real and serious and everything. And at the same time, there's a part of life that just some of the little things that you trip up on, and that's throughout the movie. There's little parts that we all trip at one point or another, and that's the fun of it.
I think there's a wonderful thing that you say there, is that the humor helps us get through things, and I think a lot of the characters, when you're in those situations, they aren't really necessarily very funny, but looking back and reflective, which I think this family does, because they're still a family even though they're coming apart. And I think that's important, and it's surprising and sometimes sad, and you can cry, but I think there's a lot of laughter through your tears in this gang. Yeah, I mean, I think for Kathy's character in particular, is that not only about getting older, but we have adult children who are on their own journeys, but it's, you're coming out of a long-term marriage, a long-term relationship, and so there's getting past that as well before you even start opening yourself up to something new. I mean, do you even want to bother? Is it even worth it? Why would I do that? I'm perfectly happy just the way I am. I got my Mahjong group, and I'm happy on Saturday nights. So it's a really interesting, wonderful thing that plays out in the film, is seeing people go on their way and what they're trying to discover. I always say about Frank when I'm talking about him is, who knows what Frank's journey is? I mean, but he's on one nonetheless, and we're watching it, and it's entertaining.
There is definitely a male component to how Frank goes after his life in this, and that was based roughly on what I was going through myself. Is that it's like you have a breakup, and then it's like, oh well, now I'm free. Now I can try things that I always wanted to try, and then you try some of them, and you go, what was I thinking? It's like
and then I'll do them again.
So I'll try again, and it's like hit the wall again, and so I was very happy that we were able to create this character out of Frank that was that, and really when you think about it, it's Kathy who was being the good person here, because well, not because she demanded it before the script. No, it was because that because in the end, there. In certain generations, the women can be the rock, right? And oftentimes are. and it's the guys that go walking at the walls and trying strange new hairdos and different clothes, or trying to pretend that they're younger than they are. And you don't see that as much on the female side, I don't think. And we definitely showed that. There was definitely a contrast. So.
But you don't know that when you get there, it might not be what you want to do or try. I mean, we do, hopefully we evolve as human beings. And I think that's also something we see with the Benetto family happening. They are a family, they're still together, they have these really strange family dinners, which I always talk about. I call them the Benetto family disasters. And, but they're still this funny family, watching everybody go, and they're being shocked and pissed off, but we watch people go through. But I don't think Kathy or Frank could have predicted 10 years ago that this is where either of them would be, or where their children would be. Yeah.
Now, I think you hit on, that's probably one of the most important things about this movie, what it's trying to document, is that you are at this point in your life, and you think you know where you're going to be 10 years from now, and it might be completely, utterly different. And how do you deal with that? Sometimes it's humorous how we deal with it, and sometimes it's messed up. It's messed up. Yeah. Well, we talked, Lindsay Joy, the writer, and I spent an enormous amount of time on these scripts. The first one took about 18 months to write it. The second one, because of COVID, we had nothing else to do. So
let's write a sequel.
So let's write a sequel. And that ended up being like 2 years. And we're still writing about a week before we actually started shooting. We just kept tweaking, making sure that the relationships and what we were showing, A, were not your typical thing, and B, that it didn't become a Debbie Downer, because it's not that kind of movie, you know. So you look at the script and you see these little sections that say omitted. And that was because,
like any good story,
script and story, it's just like, well, no, that's not going to work. Next, you know. But I was thrilled with how it. You really don't know how it comes together till the edit, in post production. And as it was coming together, I was going, okay, I think we got this. I think we're in good shape. You know. But really, it couldn't have been done without the foundation of all the great actors on this. This was, you know, casting to me is so important, and it isn't done by name per se or anything like that. It's just there's a bunch of actors that are doing really good work. And it's their first feature, and it's because they have it inside, and you can tell. And so the support from all the acting was just wonderful, and you too. Yes.
What was your name?
It's Dope with a D.
No, but I think that if you don't have a script, forget about it.
Right.
And if you don't have good actors, you can forget about that. But when it all comes together, when you start with a good story, and then you have a wonderful group of people who are there, as well as a wonderful crew, and it works to come together, and that's what we do. We're entertaining. We're putting it out there. We want to, particularly in this film, it's nice. People say, well, what do you expect from this film? And for me, I want people to come to see whatever it is that I do, and I want them to be entertained. I would like, if they're moved or supposed to be moved, or they're supposed to laugh. I mean, depending on what it is, I think there's a little bit of all of that in this.
Yes.
In particular, and it's for me, that's what I look for when I go out to be entertained by others.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've been watching all the screenings now as we've been going from city to city, and that definitely it's starting to all fit into the different cubicles. It's like this is a tears moment, and the audience gets very quiet. And then, but a lot of other times there's like a snort over there, a giggle over there. The whole place erupts on a couple of lines, you know, and it changes every screening, which I think is phenomenal. And I told Lindsay this as well. I says, you've created a script that basically fits into slots that change all the time in an audience. And I just thought that was like marvelous. Yeah, I'll take that.
Well, once you get a film into a theater, the audience becomes, you know, not unlike shooting in Brooklyn. Brooklyn is its own character in this particular film, but the audience just feeds it. I mean, whatever the genre is, the audience helps to feed what's going on, and it's different. Well, I think it's wonderful. I've never lived in Brooklyn, but I've been to Brooklyn, lots of friends in Brooklyn. But to be able to go there and sort of be a part of Brooklyn, because as a film crew comes in, you sort of take over, but yet you're still there with the locals. And I remember we're filming outside the restaurant where Tara Westwood and I were doing a scene, and it was night and it was dark, and everybody's walking home and hanging out and what you doing, and it's very Brooklyn-esque in that way. Sit down, talk, and enjoy it. And Gene was responsible for picking, well, you and Lindsay, I don't know who it was, but it's
one of us.
But Brooklyn in particular has such a lovely flavor, and it's so varied in what it offers that it is, again, a character in the film itself.
Yeah, it's there's a lot of people who really don't know. When you say Brooklyn, it's like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, so we wanted to sort of give a bit of a tour, and that's why you saw those aerial shots too. Of it's not in the background. You can always see the towers of Manhattan, but Brooklyn is Brooklyn, and it's extraordinarily diverse. Oh my God, it is such a wonderful melting pot, and that informed the casting as well. Although it wasn't specifically said who would be who or what, it just kind of naturally comes together.
Fans be able to see it.
Well, it's out already in terms of video on demand. If you go to queenandknivesthefilm.com, it literally has a tab that says where to watch. You click on that, you got all the buttons there, everywhere it is, Amazon, Apple Plus, and anything that you can think of is there. And then of course then we're doing this theatrical tour. We'll see where that leads. And then in about 6 months is when they say, okay, now we're going to see if we can, get onto Netflix or one of the majors and something like that. And that's how that system works.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think it's actually, I just want to highlight that Gene's idea of having filmings around the country with questions and answers afterwards is a wonderful thing in terms of getting a lovely independent film out there in a way. And it's soft, it's different. Like you talked about, it's changed so much, and I just think it's great.
Yeah.
So good for you. I complimented you.
Thank you.
Don't fall over
I didn't
dead.
fail.
And what have you learned?
Padawan. Oh my God! Yeah, it's been fun working with this lady over here. Yeah, it's very at ease, non-judgmental most of the time. No, it's great.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Your pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah.